Google says that it plans to invest $1 billion in Africa over the next 5 years to allow for faster and more affordable internet access and support entrepreneurship on the continent. The unit of the US tech company Alphabet Incorporation made the announcement at a virtual event where it launched an Africa investment fund. The company will invest $50 million in startups, providing them with access to its employees, networks and technologies. Google will also provide 10 million rand in low-interest loans to help small businesses and entrepreneurs in Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, as well as South Africa. And this to get through the economic hardship that's been created by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this will be done in collaboration with a not-for-profit organization, Kiva. The company has been building an undersea cable to link Africa and Europe, which it says will bring faster internet and lower connectivity costs. Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Ian Clavert, who's the founder of Further, a platform to develop high-impact entrepreneurs. Ian, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Good evening, Peter.
Right.
Good to be with you.
Fantastic. So $1 billion over the next 5 years. Do you think that this will make a dent and really be a game changer?
Look, it's hard to say whether the value of the dollar value will make the difference. I think the important thing, the internet access, is going to be critical. African entrepreneurs, mobile internet is the lifeblood of African entrepreneurs, and they, Africa has one of the highest costs of internet in the world. 6 of the most expensive countries, in the top 10 most expensive countries when it comes to internet access, are in sub-Saharan Africa, and so they therefore, to make sure that this investment gets to those entrepreneurs, we just hope that the distribution network for it, the mobile operators, don't allow those savings to be passed on to the entrepreneurs themselves. I think the investment in the entrepreneurs, I think the important thing is not just the money, but it's also the support that Google are promising. We hope that comes through, because capital is one thing, but access to networks, access to resources, to technical skills, to capacity building is critical for any African entrepreneur. And I think obviously post in the sort of in the COVID era, where every entrepreneur has struggled, I think any resource, it's been the toughest time for entrepreneurs. And we as Further, we put a lot of focus on the personal well-being and the capacity building and the support of those entrepreneurs through the tough times. So any investment into the ecosystem is very gratefully received.
Yeah, talking about ecosystems, I mean, the internet, I don't think people sometimes fully appreciate just how big the marketplace becomes with connectivity. And so that you might have a unique product here in Johannesburg that somebody in Auckland, in New Zealand, doesn't know about. But if you can reach them, suddenly you've got a customer all over the world, haven't you?
Well, exactly. I think what COVID has forced everybody to do is reimagine their customers, reimagine their marketplaces. But I think the exciting thing for us, entrepreneurship in Africa has the potential to solve not just increase commerce and increase e-commerce, but to solve some of the fundamental challenges. If you think of some of the innovations happening in the education tech sector, in ed tech, in health tech, distributing healthcare, critical healthcare via mobile, via internet in Africa is really one of the ways of making sure that even the most under-resourced areas and the under-resourced communities get access to sort of real-time healthcare. So it's not just the straight commercial entrepreneurship, but really the delivery of critical services. And going back to the education aspect, I think that there's so many amazing ed tech startups springing up now, getting world-class content into the hands of learners throughout Africa. And so to be able to do that, firstly with accessible, reliable, affordable internet is hugely important. And also just to know that for those entrepreneurs, for those startup businesses that rely on the resources of a company like Google to have the technical support, to have the commercial support behind them, not just the funding, I think is going to be an amazing opportunity.
You know, we talk about 4IR and the digital divide, and I guess, you know, the more that this happens at a pace, the further we get left behind without this connectivity that is so desperately needed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all know that you know the skills that are going to be needed in future, both at an early sort of educational level and the business skills, are all shifting to the digital need. So whether it's coding or just a real understanding of the potential of this digital world. But what we mustn't forget, and what we keep reminding a lot of our partners, is that those 4IR skills, those technical coding skills, need to be balanced with traditional sort of human values. We've often seen, if you think of some of the things that have been happening with Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp recently, in terms of the accusations that they're not using the power of that technology in the greater good, that you know the technology is really being used purely for gain. I think what we've got to balance 4IR skills with is a constant focus on building sort of, you know, making sure that the people who have the power of big data are using it in the right way. So there's a strong focus on sort of empathy, on collaboration, on critical skills, problem solving. So some of those human skills that are still needed, no matter what the distribution mechanism, and to make sure that as we deploy technology, we're using it for good, not just for optimizing profit.
When we started this conversation, you said a couple of times that you'd hoped that it would do certain things. What are some of the challenges do you think that Google might face in trying to roll this out? And I don't know if you caught that. You looked like you were frozen for a couple of seconds.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, we're good now.
All right. I was just saying, at the beginning of this conversation, you said in part that you'd hoped that you know, certain things would come out of this. What are some of the challenges do you think that Google might face in trying to roll out this project? I
think, you know, it's like in any business, it relies on partnerships. You know, you can't just as one organization change anything. So it's going to require public sector involvement. It's going to require private sector involvement. And I think it's to make sure that this benefit gets down to the organizations at the level that it's needed. And I think as well, you know, they're talking about $50 million being put into startups. I think there's a big focus at the moment on, you know, we talk about unicorns and finding these huge, potentially huge organizations. But really the solution to Africa's problem, particularly the employment problem, is not finding a handful of businesses that employ thousands of people. It's rather finding thousands of businesses or 10,000 businesses that employ a handful of people. So we mustn't forget about the sort of micro enterprise, the true small businesses that are really going to make a difference across Africa, not just building a few giant companies. So I just hope that they manage to deploy the funding, and the funding gets into the hands of those small businesses that really need it. Because it's going to be small business, you know, businesses in communities doing business with each other in a sort of physical community. But as you point out, just the ability now to scale your product, your service offering to a global audience without necessarily having huge infrastructure, huge organizational structures. So small is still beautiful in Africa. And I think the more we encourage small business and not try to automatically turn it into huge business, I think the better we'll be.
We talk about connectivity and access to cheap data and that kind of thing as a good lever. But as somebody who's focused on developing entrepreneurs, what is the biggest obstacle, do you think, that's in our way, that's holding us back in terms of unleashing all of this potential that we have on the continent?
That's a great question, Peter. A lot of the challenge particularly for the sort of emerging entrepreneurs who are coming out of the communities, it's social capital, it's connections, it's networks. So yes, funding is vital, but really it's sort of access to markets. It's having some of those networks that maybe some of the traditional markets or people operating from a more sort of privileged environment have those networks. But it's trying to grow that social capital, grow those networks and opportunities for entrepreneurs that they don't sort of initially have access to. So it's a whole number of things. There's a lot of capacity building that needs to happen, just to make sure that those entrepreneurs are performing to their full potential. So a lot of the work that we focus on is that human capacity and that human potential, which when it's backed up with strong capital, strong access to networks, strong access to markets, really does give those entrepreneurs the best chance of success.
Ian, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Do not tire doing good. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much, Peter.
All right, that's Ian Clavert, who's the founder of Further, which is a platform designed to help high-impact entrepreneurs. And I've just got a good feeling that, our luck is changing on the continent and something magical is just around the corner.